the Alabama Crimson Tide, the program that did poach two sitting FBS head coaches to be coordinators, has now lost its offensive coordinator and its offensive line coach to the NFL. So we remember all of the wonderful moments of the Ryan Grubb era. Ryan Grubb, the longtime offensive coordinator for Kalen DeBoer. He was with him at multiple stops, has been with him for a long time. He is off to be the Seattle Seahawks' new offensive coordinator, and very significant. Offensive line coach Scott Huff has as well. So you think about the way that Washington offense was built. Joe Moore award-winning offensive line, a scheme in place with the quarterback and wide receivers being able to take advantage of the matchups that they were able to present, all the different shifts, all the different motions. Sure seems like offensive line, offensive coordinator, head coach had to all be in line. Now, two of those three pieces are gone. So Alabama is now searching for a new offensive coordinator, a new offensive line coach. It is February the 12th. But this isn't, I don't know any way to read this as this is A, just not good. Good, not good. It's not good for Alabama. And B, a very, very interesting challenge for Kalen DeBoer's year one that already had a certain fair share of challenges.
I agree, Chip, because if you think about this, like Kalen DeBoer does not have a huge coaching tree. One of the reasons that he's had success is that he's managed to keep, kind of largely the same assistant staff together, or quickly brought them back into the fold, for like 15 years now. So this is tough. Like I think Ryan Grubb is a really excellent offensive coordinator. Do you know who else thought that? Nick Saban, because he tried to hire him last offseason. So yeah, I think this is a bit of a blow for Alabama. Now it's still DeBoer, so I would still expect them to largely be fine, because I think the head man really dictates it. But if you're Ryan Grubb, you get to coach in the NFL, which is more fun, and you get to stay in Seattle where you're already living, as opposed to moving to Tuscaloosa. I mean, guys, I'm not moving to Tuscaloosa if I make millions in Seattle. I've lived in Tuscaloosa. Tuscaloosa's fine. In Seattle, I probably don't want to live in, but if I make a boatload of money, cool. I'm going to live in Seattle over Tuscaloosa. So
Seattle's very nice.
Yeah.
Rains a lot.
He wanted it. He wanted the Washington head coach job. He did not get the Washington head coach job. He had his family, growing up in that area. He wasn't there for a very long time, but you understand what I'm saying. Like he clearly had something about being around there that was exciting to him. He wants to go back. Is there, to your point, Bud, something on a very basic, somebody who doesn't know anything about these gentlemen, who doesn't know anything about college football? It's like, well, yeah. He was in Tuscaloosa for 2 weeks and said, I want to go home. But, there's also the whole fact of, this is the Seattle Seahawks. This is the NFL. So I understand on a lot of levels, I guess, why Ryan Grubb would be enticed by this. But Tom, I keep, so what happens now for Alabama?
I don't know. It's a weird time. Like obviously, they're going to hire an offensive coordinator. They're going to hire an offensive line coach. Where are you going to go? As Bud mentioned, it's not like Kalen DeBoer has the deepest coaching tree. And it is a very different situation than what Alabama's dealt with in recent years, because Nick Saban was losing guys every single year, but he was Nick Saban. So he just had to reach out, find somebody. Okay, you do the job now. I think there's a higher likelihood that Kalen DeBoer calls plays next year. Like, I don't know if there's an offensive coordinator he's going to bring in who he's just going to hand the playbook to, considering the success he's had as a play caller in his time, which is a large reason why he's gotten the jobs he's gotten, why he's now at Alabama. So I would anticipate that could be different. We could see him bring in a name and somebody he trusts more to do it. I don't know, but it's an interesting thing, because we are in February and there's still turnover, because after the signing day, you always see this. Position coaches start switching schools and you start moving on. You have to replace guys. But I do think, like Bud said, the wild card here is that it's Alabama and that it's DeBoer, who has typically had a very consistent staff everywhere he's been. So this is kind of different.
Yeah, I liked this comment from Sean. It says, what sitting head coach will Alabama pull to be the next offensive coordinator, ensuring that the coaching carousel never ends? Sean is in on the joke. Those of you watching live, by the way, we see that little piece of breaking news, and we'll get to it here in just a little bit. I would say our rundown is being rewritten as we speak. But before we do that, Alabama offensive coordinator candidates. Bud, you said
Sean Foster.
No, he's busy. He's busy.
He's busy, Tom.
Okay.
I mean, look, if you want to look internally, I would guess Deshaun Foster. Sorry, I would guess DeMarcus Shepard, who's the receiver coach, did a really good job there, involved with the passing game. But again, this kind of goes back to scan Ryan Grubb's coaching tree. There are not a lot of obvious guys who are no doubt slam dunks. So if you look at what DeBoer's done, I don't know. This is going to be interesting to see because it's not like he's part of a big coaching tree.
Does Tommy Rees have a job right now?
Yeah, he's with the Cleveland Browns. I think he's coaching tight ends. Another coordinator leaving for an NFL job, by the way.
Would you take Tommy Rees back if he wanted to come back?
Who did Tommy Rees want to be the quarterback at Alabama? And who does DeBoer want to be the QB? I mean, that would sort of matter to me.
Well, you and I, not you.
Like, was the whole USF switch? Remember when they swapped it?
Of
and
course,
the Bama players were like, absolutely not. Yeah, I mean, they didn't throw the game, but I do think there was some real discontent there within that program about who the players wanted to be the QB. Whose side was Rees on there? I don't know. Like, is DeBoer committed to Milroe, or are they going to roll with Mack? Are they going to look for somebody else in the spring window? All questions that might factor into that decision.
DeBoer's a good people person from everything that I've heard. And as I said earlier, if he believes that the locker room wants Milroe, you keep Milroe as the incumbent until you absolutely cannot because of performance or injury reasons.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
If Rees doesn't want Milroe, then yeah, sure.
How big of a deal is this? We really don't know because it's like, I think clearly losing these guys is a big deal. The magnitude of the deal will be based largely on who they hire. Again, it's not that it's not par for the course. I do think it's kind of scummy to wait.
Oh, the 30-day window. We got to hit that. Sorry.
I mean, come on, guys. Really?
So it was reported, right? Like, that's not even a rumor. Like, it was reported that part of the timing, because it came from the Seattle Times, and this is what stinks for Alabama, is that, Seattle Times, like, now they've got their guys, they've got all the reporting, and, Seattle Seahawks fans are like, well, why did it take so long? Seattle Times comes out and is like, well, yeah, it just took so long because they had to wait until the kids couldn't leave again. And I think that stinks, even though I would hope that if you decided to stay and you were on Alabama's roster, you had decided to stay because of Kalen DeBoer, not specifically because of Scott Huff or Ryan Grubb.
This is a great example of why the transfer portal is awesome, right? Because previously you wouldn't have been able to transfer out if they had pulled this stuff post-spring. Right now, whoever they bring in, okay, like maybe you wanted to transfer out now. Now you can't because the window's closed. Now you can go to the spring window if you don't like who Kalen DeBoer brings in to be your offensive coordinator or your offensive line coach. So, like, now this is one of the reasons why I really love the transfer portal, because teams try to pull scummy moves like this, and the actual impact on the player is not quite as negative as it could have been. Additionally, I mean, if you had done this 2 days earlier before the window closed, it still really doesn't matter because not a lot of schools can get you into school right now anyway. I talked to some coaches about this over the weekend. And I guess if you're on quarters, maybe, but there are not that many schools that are on quarters. So
you'd be a summer arrival, like wherever you're going to transfer, you're not going to be able to show up until summer workouts.
Right. So look, I mean, worst case, you don't like the guy he hires. You go through spring anyway. It's not like Bama strength conditioning sucks. You'll stay in good shape.
Yeah,
maybe you'll get to play some a little more practice film, and then you bounce if you need to. But this used to matter more when players had fewer options and fewer freedoms, because teams would do stuff like this intentionally, and you really had no recourse.
Also, going back to the previous conversation, like Greg Byrne even said when they were interviewing Kalen DeBoer, they understood that there was a very high likelihood that Grubb would be leaving. So, like, when they were doing the interview for the process, DeBoer had other people in mind to be offensive coordinator in case Grubb did leave. Now, the dog and pony show of Grubb being linked with the Seahawks job, coming back to Tuscaloosa and saying, I'm going to be
I'm
the
your offensive coordinator.
I'm your offensive coordinator, and then leaving for Seattle, when there's a decent chance, we don't know for sure, but there's a pretty decent chance he knew he was not going to be the offensive coordinator at Alabama by that point. It's scummy. I don't like it at all. So, but yeah, you're right. They do have a chance to leave in the spring, but you mentioned, like, the offensive line coach leaves. Alabama brought in a couple transfers from Washington. The offensive line, they might have transferred to Alabama, to A, because it's Alabama, but B, to work again with their offensive line coach. And now he's leaving. So it's just, yeah, I don't like it. I get it. I understand why they're doing it. I don't like it.
It makes me not be in favor of a single portal window. And I believe that is one of the many suggestions that is out there. And as long as we live in the era of the never-ending carousel, then I do believe there should be multiple opportunities throughout a calendar year when players would be able to enter the transfer portal, and if they have that one-time transfer ability, to transfer without penalty. Because guess what?
Coaches transfer portal.
Well, the coaches can transfer without penalty.
But I'm saying they should have a window. Coaches are only allowed to leave for other jobs at certain times. Work that into their contracts. They have them. You can do it. Oh, they can't? Why not? Why won't that happen?
No, I'm just thinking about this selfishly. I mean, somebody, the Cover 3 tailgate, mentioned before the show, like, somebody was like, boo to Chip for the never-ending carousel. And then somebody followed up and was like, no, like, yay to Chip. What would we be talking about?
My point is just that you talked about how they want there to be like a one-time window. Who's pushing for that the hardest?
I mean,
coaches.
Yes,
I'm saying we should push for coaches to only be able to move at a certain time.
And to be fair, I've only heard that as one of many suggestions. Nobody has presented a full proof plan to fix the calendar. Everyone only has individual things that they want, and we haven't gotten anywhere close to an idea of what could make it better than what we have.